There, it looks like we're live, so just some delay here, so essentially what I got going on is here. You make that. Oops. Use that requirements.txt that I want here. So I have to do this a little bit different since I'm using a NeoVim now. Um, so so that we can go from there. See what I was looking on last time was a backup and restore function here. So that's pretty much it for the backup. The restore is going to be a little bit. Or we should do a post method. That should be right at that. Oops. Yeah, we'll make it match and do the spaces there. That's kind of how I've been doing it for a while here. I can spell right. So that's a blueprint for it. So used to using my mouse when I shot. So write that for now. Or actually might have to do just so that we have the right And while I'm here, might as well harpoon the file. So we might have to work somewhere else and circle back to that. Nothing in chat so far, but just gotta think some of this through. I want to look at this API repo because thinking that IP address is none is weird. Maybe because no, it is used. So all that does is check the API key, make sure the API key is in the database. Also make sure that the IP matches because I'm trying to make this thing secure. But it doesn't necessarily have to be so secure that it has to use username names and passwords. My main concern with this thing is I don't want someone to set up an event and then have someone else just show up with a random computer who just happens to download the client and then just be able to mess everything up. I want each client to be authorized, but it doesn't have to necessarily be with different accounts. So that's where I'm getting at, and that's the main reason why I rolled my own authentication protocol essentially is because like I think using OAuth 2 for something like this, something that's meant to be on a private LAN, is very overkill. And I looked at it and it's a lot of headache for my programming knowledge currently. I'm trying to do this thing without AI because the issue I have with AI currently is I'm not strong enough in the fundamentals of programming myself. Even though I have done some programming, Visual Basic and Python and whatnot, that if I have an AI do it, um, I'm not learning first of all. So if I don't learn it, then I can't really expand my knowledge. So I'm just trusting AI to spit out somewhat secure code and somewhat performant code. Whereas if I learn it myself and then eventually start using AI later, I feel like that would be a better path to take. So that's where I'm at, and that's why I'm uh, kind of using little archaic tools and stuff like that when it comes to programming because I'm like, yeah, I'd actually want to learn some of it and not just rely on AI. So like, yeah, if somebody in chat is watching this and goes, "Hey, you're doing this wrong" or something like that, um, I'm all ears when it comes to that, and that's one of the reasons why I'm like, maybe I'll live stream my programming sessions. I keep switching windows back and forth and then slinging the keys at the wrong window. Uh, I'm not used to using a fuzzy finder. I'm not used to NeoVim. So it's like, yeah, if I stumble around NeoVim, especially at first, like, yeah, forgive me. So it's like, yeah, I've been using LazyVim as a distribution, and yeah, it's just maybe I'll do it in models. It works great. The main thing I changed, uh, maybe I'll show my config. My dot file should be linked on the stream. Uh, but what I have set up for it is maybe I could do. I think if I do config, there we go. So essentially disabled, I disabled buffer line. Tabs don't work that well, and buffer line and NeoVim, I find it confusing because it changes the numbers. So yes, it's nice to be able to switch your buffers based by numbers, and it's cool to have tabs to a certain extent. But when that number changes for the specific file and it starts changing the order of things on its own, like I found that confusing. So I actually went through the process. I used the menu system to do it, but yeah, you can tell I have the Harpoon 2 plugin enabled. That's something that the Primeagen on YouTube actually helped make or made himself. And it's a very useful tool. I love it. I think he did a good job on it. I still stumble around it a little bit, even though it's really easy to use. But the one thing I do like about it is the number doesn't change for the file. Once you harpoon a file, it uses that same number essentially. So I can harpoon this file too, and like if I bring the menu up, this is what the menu looks like, and those numbers stay unless you change them yourself. Like I forgot what the move keys were for NeoVim, but get out of there. But maybe I should do that in a separate window just so my search history doesn't come up. Yeah, I knew that NCM PCPP uses some Vim shortcuts, but for some reason I was thinking M and N works for some reason on NeoVim, but apparently I'm wrong in thinking that. Oh, Alt J and Alt K in Lazy Vim, because I'm using Lazy Vim as a distribution because I'm not so good at NeoVim yet. Oops. I'm not so good at NeoVim yet that like I can make my own config files. So I'm like, I'll just use LazyVim for now. If I decide to roll my own, like I'm kind of learning some from using LazyVim, so it's like, so yeah, the apparently if you use a harpoon, yeah, so you can move up and down using Alt J and Alt K if you're using the Harpoon 2 plugin on LazyVim. So that makes sense because J and K moves up and down. But it's like, yeah, you can either use the menu or you can just space 2, space 1. I got those two files. I can just literally go back and forth. And if I harpoon a third, that one will become 3 and whatnot. So that's why I like harpoon 2. Uh, so we'll do, yeah, data class. I'll make it data class. Um, we'll do like, or something like that. That should work. Uh, we don't necessarily need an ID, but we essentially have prefixes. That should work. And we'll do and so that should go there. And we gotta go. One thing I wish there might be a way to change this on my end, but when you're doing modules in Python, you don't use the modules you're bringing in the same file. So it gives you all these errors, like on your linting and NeoVim using the Python language plugin. Um, I think that should change because it should look at the file name a little bit at least. Be like, okay, if you're using a dunder and that file name, this is a module, and whatever you import, just assume it's going to be used in other files in the project. So that's the way I look at it. I'm like, yeah, I'd probably change that behavior if I had any control over it. Maybe I could actually contribute code there, figure out like which GitHub repo the language server provider or whatever does that linting, uh, where that is, and maybe I can contribute something to it. But it's like, yeah, I think that behavior should change for Dunder and net files, at least for the Python language. And that picked up that at least, so I don't have to type it all out. And we'll write that. Just got enough to turn this into a parentheses import statement. So we can go back to there. And now we should be able to go. Might have to work the repo a little bit too. Yeah, I was just thinking about that. Which I don't think I have. Yeah, I don't have anything else harpoon, so we'll harpoon this file for good measure. Keep forgetting and just use keyboard for some of it. We'll create a backup repo maybe. also import that first. And that's going to do it automatically anyway if I don't put a comma there. Or it's not callable, so should be a list object. I'll do something like oops. I actually find that sometimes the linting's better than it was in VS Code. Should we do maybe a commit there? Keep doing that. It's not callable. I gotta keep reminding myself. Oops. I could probably. Or actually, I forget to order my own schema prefix first, always. And jumping the gun a little bit. That's going to be a string, even though it's an integer on Python side. It's always a string on the database side, pretty much. And then we'll do put that S there too. And should be it. I think we're good on parentheses. We just pass its dictionary into that, should sort out what to do. Or actually, I might just do on the same line. If it yells about too much, I can automatically change it, but that's not a line full to me. I know it's not very Pythonic of me to do that though. Hey, if the code works, that's all I care. I don't think the schema will be long enough to justify. Maybe. Let's raise donors. See, I haven't picked this up in a while, so I don't necessarily have my entire schema memorized, so this might not work. That seems correct. Huh. Oh, there's stuff going on at my neighbor's house. Her door slam. I'm like, I don't think I'm expecting anyone. Just possibly having an unexpected guest just kind of sidetracked my thoughts a little bit. So, should be good here, other than adding it to init as well, which I didn't repo. Repo. We're going to have to Did we save that? Yeah, I think we did. Now we should be able to bring in that repo. Bring in the repo. And we'll get a server error if anything happens with this one. But so then the reason why I brought up this tab is, oops, fast API, and Z shell doesn't autocomplete from virtual environments. Apparently, I might have to see about adding a module or something to Z shell. But fast API dev main.py. Oh, I forgot this was dependent on MariaDB, which I have it launch a Docker container. So the script that I wrote launches this Docker container, and once it hits the database, so now we can watch docs here. Move that to a new window. So essentially got this going on. Okay, I already do have a backup and restore on here. That delay throws me off though. So we need to start with generating a key, because the database starts fresh every time. By default, if it's not overridden, I currently have it just set to 1, 2, 3, 4. That's just an organizational name. We'll copy that because we gotta use it for everything else. So post a couple of tickets. I tested all this out already. I pretty much wrote the thing already before I decided to start live streaming it. Prefix, we'll just go. Just throwing in some meaningless data just to give it something. Doesn't really matter. 200 and it's returning it back. Cool. I just want to see it export and import. Just because it's a current artist. Why not? Give it something else. usually are white tickets. And so that's posted. So I'll just do a basket or two just in case. So this is essentially how the back end works. It's essentially the same as my my previous version, the ticket auction manager I have on my GitHub. I organize it a little better, so the prefixes of the past actually make sense now. Um, because I did use a prefix function of the API router object. I might do the front end in this one. I might make it React based because the issue I have with my previous version is the client doesn't like Wayland very well. Like it works, but just it skews everything and it makes it look weird and is not as functional and all that fun stuff. So I'm like, okay, if I write this thing in like React or something, then it'll scale pretty well. If I feel I still need to do client end stuff like file manipulation, stuff like that, the local version of the SQL database I did for backup purposes with the previous version. I didn't figure that one out until later on. So I'm like, if I need to do something like that, I could use some sort of like web view wrapper, something like Whales for Golang, or I could use like web view for Python and do the local file manipulation using the web view features. Like Whales has its own way of binding Golang objects into your interface so that you can call, like it automatically generates the JavaScript bindings and you can call uh, your Golang methods and stuff right through that way. Um, but the WebView wrapper for Python, you can attach an API object and you can call it using window.webview.api and dot your method on your API object. Either way, I could still bring in some local file functionality just on top of the React interface that I've already built that can run in a web browser. But yeah, so essentially what you're looking at is just the back end operations for this thing. It'll make this like 1003. So now on the back end, the reports are like I can essentially go by name here. Um, I'll try it out, and then that also needs an API key, but you can put a prefix in, and in theory, it should return like the winner name and stuff like that. So it organizes by prefix and by the winner name. So that would, instead of my previous version, I did that in HTML and I just had the client open up a web browser and go to that page. I shouldn't have to do that in this. I shouldn't have to do it on the back end because even if I write this in React, React should be able to take this information and render out uh, the actual structure itself using this API data. So that's why I got that going on. So go download backup. Make sure that still works. I think I tested it. Yeah. So that all looks good. I might have to write some unit testing and stuff like that for that. So we're going to copy this information. And what we're essentially going to do is just simply refresh the server, which essentially deletes all its data. So as you can tell, which means the schema works as a docs pickup here. But even if I go into here, um, bring that in, it should reject it on the API key. So that's what I was talking about earlier, is if the API key is invalid or if it's using it from a different IP address, given that your reverse proxy is set up good, that it will, it should in theory reject um, that posting or whatever. So essentially, I'm just gonna have to generate a new API key and it should work because it should. Keep wanting to tab on these two. So we'll bring that API key in and just change it down here. And then we'll just go execute. Oh, that just tells it what it's doing. Internal server error. So we're gonna have to look at the logs. Oh, this is why it's good to have reading errors as a skill. Uh, because now I know exactly where to look. And also I might do replacement too, so since a lot of my other repos are using that verbiage, but it took me a minute to that, or for that one, because I'm not, self-admittedly, I'm not very good at programming. Uh, I still sometimes think it's beyond me to make such a dumb mistake. as forgetting that percent sign. Anyway, moving on, that should reload the server. That's all good. Okay, let's try this again. Internal server error again. Okay, what did I do this time? Backets doesn't. Why do I keep making these mistakes? Anyway, it's like every insert statement I screw up somehow. Other than the prefix ones, you're awesome. Okay, save that. That's all reloaded. And let's do this again. Yay! That's a result I want. Okay. Uh, we can easily test this just by running a report. We now have a working backup and restore function. Okay. Time for anything else here. Like starting maybe a client application, maybe. We'll just name this web, maybe. React. I'll try, I'll just blow it away. Like, I don't necessarily like using TypeScript. JavaScript does have types. You just have to kind of figure out ways to force it to use those types. TypeScript can be too strict sometimes, so if you want a little bit of leeway on your types, sometimes it really forces you, and anything you put into any sort of method uh, or function, you have to put some sort of type on it, or it'll just yell at you constantly on your linting. And it's like I try not to get yelled at as much as possible when it comes to the linting because I don't like the linting cluttering my screen. Uh, I don't necessarily want to initialize a new Git repository. I might use a Git repository. This shouldn't take too long because of how fast my internet is. But while it's doing that, I'll check, see if there's any chat. Nothing. So do I have to refresh? Oh, that won't help me too much. So this is normal mode, so I should just be able to save and exit. Huh? Okay. I'm not sure. Uh, TypeScript. I might just have to do the routing manually. Bye bye. So we'll just do the npm create web React, because why not? JavaScript. Trying to think of anything else I should install. I'll probably use Fetch for getting the API data. So that should be it there. Um, I'll just bring in NeoVim right there. Actually, just so we can see the structure a little better. So generally you get main.jsx that brings in your yeah, I have to learn shortcuts a little better. Still fumbling around this thing a little bit. So your main.jsx just creates the structure, so it's essentially creating the root for the whole React project. And the app.jsx is where all your logic happens. So essentially what I'm seeing here is it creates the app function and does all that it needs to and exports the app. So then that way your main.jsx file can import it, which then gets imported into um, the index.html, which then renders out your entire app. So that's essentially what happens in a nutshell. So going forward, probably future programming sessions, because I kind of have to browse the docs on React Router and stuff like that. I did use it a long time ago on a private project. Uh, that has changed in React Router version 7, and I'm not officially accustomed to that yet. And wait a minute here. And my cat's after some sort of bug here. I'll occasionally get some sort of wasp or hornet in my house, and it looks like she found another one. Huh. Dark one with white stripes. A little bit shy sometimes, even to me. She's like, I gotta go chase other stuff. Maybe we'll go after something that's won't bite or sting. Something like this. I don't think she likes the spinning action of the chair too much. Yeah, I can kind of get off to the side. Yeah, I can't really see her on camera right there. There we go. There she is. Maybe my stream will actually get views if I just play with my cat on stream. She like seems to know where the view of the camera is. Doesn't like to get on it. Ace, we're just not showing random code on the screen when it's about something else currently. She's like, nope, I'm taking it off screen. No, I'm bringing it back. sometime I might see about getting a second camera going that way. And that way, like if I needed to switch back and forth or something like this, I'd be able to. Might also see about putting chat or my OBS to. I don't know if the camera's seeing it, but she keeps her mouth open sometimes when she's like watching it. But this is actually my second cat. My first cat, since I've lived alone, had to have her put down December 2nd. Her name was Butterscotch. She's calico. This cat I adopted from the shelter. This one's name is Peaches. But, yeah, Butterscotch, my previous cat there, had her for 4 years. Actually, when I adopted her, I kind of adopted her off the street. Um, Sticky situation a couple towns over. Um, Elderly couple wanting a nursing home, and they left their house and uh, pets to like their daughter or granddaughter or something like. And apparently they didn't want the pets; they just saw them out on the streets. Someone else adopted the little dog that they had, and then I ended up with Butterscotch. Well, apparently the entire time I had her, she was sick with the kidney chronic kidney disease. Because I thought it was a little bit weird because I didn't have to change the litter as often, and because her waste products didn't really smell that bad. So I would just scoop and only change litter like twice a year is kind of like not that bad. I'm like, maybe it wasn't that, but apparently her couldn't, like urine and stuff wasn't smelling because her kidneys weren't uh, actually passing the toxins. They were just being stored in her blood. And then eventually, uh, it was like, yeah, she stopped eating. I took her to the vet. They ran blood work, and they're like, yeah, it's not good. Chronic kidney disease, all her kidney toxins were like way elevated. So there's no saving her. I had to have her put down there. Um, so it took like a week or two of a break of not having a cat, and I decided to go to the shelter. Ended up with this one. She was 9 months old when I adopted her back mid to late December. There she goes. She's starting to get a little bit lazy once she gets sapped a little bit. She'll kind of just lay down and attack it from a laying position. Yeah, she's like, I'm not gonna play anymore. Yep, so I'll probably, since I don't see any viewers currently, of course I start putting it away and then she's like, I want to play with it now. It's like, yeah, your chance. You're kind of losing interest in it. She only wants to play with it now because she knows it's going away for a little bit. But yeah, so if somebody's viewing this like later on, the recording or whatnot, I'll probably occasionally start doing these programming live streams. If somebody comes in and wants to chat or whatnot, um, we can do that. Um, so with that, I'll probably end it. Uh, yes, I'll see you in the next one.